By a show of hands, who here has ever worked really, really hard on something only to get subpar results? Yeah, that seems about right. I would have bet money that everyone in this room would have raised their hands. Maybe you trained really hard for a sports match, only to not even place, or your mind completely blanked during that test you studied oh so hard for. Or, if you're an S2, you might have worked your entire life on the goal of admission to a top university. Maybe you got accepted, and everyone around you cheered and cried and hugged you. Or maybe you didn't, and none of that effort you put in even gets acknowledged. And it feels like all the blood, sweat, and tears you put in didn't even matter. For me, it feels like that experience repeats over and over every time I audition for a play. Hi everyone, my name is Quinn, and contrary to popular belief, I am not a failure. Like many people at this school, I've spent my entire life completely focused on one thing. For some, it's academics or sports or visual arts. For me, it's musical theater. I have been performing my whole life. When I was 3 years old, my mom signed me up for dance lessons at Studio Pavis in Mississauga. My mom always recalls that time and how shocked she was when the shy, quiet little girl she always knew came out of her shell on stage. She became herself. In the second grade, I moved to a tiny town outside of Boston and immediately signed up for a competitive dance team. Being new, I was quickly ostracized, and being 6 years old, I didn't care much for practicing outside of class, so I quickly fell behind. The other girls were perfect, of course, and very, very mean. So in the fourth grade, I made the switch to musical theater. Since then, I've been in 18 different musicals, and for almost all of them have been a part of the ensemble. For those of you who don't know, the ensemble members are the ones that sing and dance and react to whatever funny things the leads have to say. Some fun roles I've gotten included Lady of the Court, a rat in Pied Piper, an Oompa Loompa, and one time I even got to play grass. It can be really fun to be in the ensemble, as I love both singing and dancing, but most audience members don't notice them. When everyone is drawn to the lead's show-stopping belt and they fail to notice the sweat flying off of my perfectly presented smile, it's hard to feel like I'm of any value. As humans, we are naturally drawn to external motivation, whether it be a university acceptance letter or just someone complimenting your outfit. We want to know that people recognize our achievements. This feeling is normal and natural. Of course you want to feel loved and recognized. It makes us feel like all the effort we've put into whatever we're doing has finally paid off. However, there's a flip side to it. Because that effort exists regardless of whether or not it gets recognized. We base our own value so heavily on outside perception that if we don't get the response we hope for, our worldview collapses. Having been casted as an ensemble member so many times, I have experienced this more than anyone I know. There's nothing wrong with being an ensemble member, but you don't get to shine the same way you would if you were a lead. At my old theater company, we had this ritual where everyone sat in a circle in silence and all looked at the cast list at the same time. No one was to make any noises or facial expressions. We would just sit there and process whatever role we got. Every time we did this, without fail, my hope was so high, some would call it delusion. I always really believed in myself. I've been working on this my entire life. I deserve a role where that can be celebrated. My mental health and sense of self-worth for the following months would be purely decided on whether or not I got a lead role. Regardless, I always got the same result, ensemble. Then, of course, I started to spiral. I would tell myself, this is a middle school production, and you're not even good enough to get a lead. How do you expect to do this as a career? You obviously aren't good at it. All of those years and years of training have proven to nothing. What a waste. You're a failure. When I say it out loud, it sounds like such an intense reaction to a seemingly minuscule problem. It's just a musical. It's not that deep. But when you build up your entire identity around something, it hurts not to be the best at it. I'm sure some of you have been playing sports for a really long time and feel fully defeated if you lose a match or don't get accepted onto a team. The hurt you experience from that matters, and a lot of the times, it consumes you. It's interesting to me that we are so easy to diminish our own efforts if things don't go our way. We always tell ourselves that we need to work harder next time so we can achieve our goals. Recently, I had an amazing experience attending a workshop hosted by Broadway's Jen Kalela, who starred in the original cast of Come From Away. She told me something that changed my entire outlook on my efforts. She told me that she had always had a little voice in her head telling her that she was bad and needs to do better. And she justified this voice by claiming that she won't be able to make it in the industry if she isn't critical of herself. You need to know your own weaknesses in order to improve on them, right? But this so-called self-awareness is nothing more than just self-hatred. At the end of the day, you don't need to hate yourself to get better at something. Self-hatred pushes you to do better, sure, but at a very high emotional cost that can be completely avoided. And self-awareness doesn't necessarily make you stronger either. Being aware of your faults can only help you grow if you don't get consumed by them. This was all told to me by a woman who has performed in countless Broadway shows. So obviously that mentality didn't keep her from success. If anything, it motivated her and kept her from burning out or feeling insignificant. The fact that even a successful actor like her can feel as though they aren't good enough just proves how little outside validation will do when your mind is already set on despair. Performing on Broadway may be a life goal, but reaching it won't solve everything. That change needs to come from within. Last year, I was deeply honored to be involved in the school's production of Mamma Mia as, you guessed it, a member of the ensemble. This was the year that I let my self-hatred consume me, with the idea that it would push me to become better and hopefully recognized, even though it had already been cast. I spent countless lunch breaks and valuable homework time drilling harmonies and choreography. It was exhausting. I burnt myself out. When the show eventually closed, I remember everyone cheering and singing and celebrating all of the effort they'd put in. But I put such a large part of my soul into the musical that I didn't have any energy left to celebrate. In the end, I earned colors for my contribution to the show, and of course it felt good. It was nice to feel recognized. But that small joy of recognition in no way compared to the months of overworking that it took to get there. I was happy, but even more than that, I was exhausted. I wasn't even proud of the effort I had put in. I just saw it as a period of my life where I did nothing but hate myself, just like Jen Kalela said. Every day, I wonder what would have happened if I had focused more on enjoying my experience than trying to be perfect. I'm trying to be grateful for my own efforts, passion, and drive. I'll be the first to admit that it's not easy working twice as hard as everyone else only to do half as well. And the truth is, the majority of my concern is purely based on being perceived for my efforts, whether it be through flowers, colors, or being given a lead in the next show. And at the end of the day, the last thing I want is for anyone to perceive me how I perceive myself. Slowly but surely, I'm accepting the fact that I, like all of you, am worthy of love and acceptance, even if I'm not the best person in my niche. Being able to sing and dance doesn't make me special, so it's therefore no different if I'm unable to. The thing is, external validation is fluid and fluctuates constantly. Not only that, but it is entirely out of our control. The problem I experienced last year stemmed from the fact that my whole life, I've been basing my own self-worth on what others think of me. But no one knows the extent of the passion I have for musical theater other than me. No one knows me like I do. So does it matter what they think? Performing has never been about the audience's applause at the end. Sure, it feels good, but it's merely an afterthought to the immense talent that's displayed on stage. The value of a show has nothing to do with the applause, and it has everything to do with the pure joy and passion that the performers feel when they become their art. So, Appleby, I ask that we as a community learn to applaud for ourselves and appreciate all that we do. It's not narcissism, it's self-love. Be self-aware about not just your failures, but the effort and drive it took to get you there. Life isn't about trying harder and harder until we eventually reach our goal. It's not about being the best at any given thing. It isn't even about being good. It's about doing what you love and loving what you do and validating yourself along the way. And if that gets you a lead role, amazing. If not, it doesn't mean you're unworthy or unloved, because the work you have done leading up to this point is more than enough, and you don't need anyone else to tell you that. You just need to know it for yourself. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not even there myself. But if we can work one step at a time towards openly displaying the parts of ourselves that may not be the most impressive or perfect, we can waste less time trying to fix them. Now let's use that time to sing hymn number 26 in the Red Book, Your Love is Amazing.